test for me and make sure people can hear me?
Test.
Great. Test. We're good. Okay, thank you so much for both of you for coming. So we are going to start with an opening statement by each candidate, and we will go with Chris Eck for Edmonds City Council Position 1. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I will look at my cards a little more than usual just because I want to make sure to hit all my points. But first, thank you, Teresa, my Edmonds News and Edmonds Waterfront Center for doing this tonight. It's an amazing opportunity for really everyone and for all of you for spending your time with us tonight. It's been my honor to be on council, and I was elected November of 2023. And I can't tell you how much our family, my husband of more than 20 years, and I and our daughters have loved being in the area. We're raising our youngest in Edmonds, and they've gone to Edmonds Public Schools. When I ran in 2023, and why I'm running now, is I didn't hear a lot of officials talking about, they were talking about preserving the bowl, which I wholeheartedly support. It's charming, it's why we're all here, it's why we draw tourists and businesses here. But more than that, I wasn't hearing them talk about our other neighborhoods, which is incredibly important to me also. And so having a voice on council that really thinks holistically about our city is incredibly important. That's why I'm running again.
That's time. Now you know what it sounds like. Thank you. Glenda?
Hi, thank you, Teresa. And thank you very much for hosting this evening. My name is Glenda Crawl, and I am running for Edmonds City Council Position 1. First, I would like to thank everyone for being here. I know there's a Mariner game tonight, and you had a choice to be there or here, and I would have been at home watching the game if it were up to me. I love Edmonds. It has been my home for more than 25 years, and it isn't just where I live, but it's where I've built my real estate business, volunteered my time, and invested my energy. I have watched Edmonds grow, change, and face challenges. Through it all, I have stayed engaged, attended city council meetings, served on local boards, and working with local organizations to strengthen our community. That kind of an experience has given me perspective. I understand how past decisions still affect residents today, and I know how important it is that future ones are made with both history and accountability in mind. Local government is the closest to the people, and the decisions they make directly affect us all.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with our first question. And how this works is, I'm going to give you a question, and we're going to start with a 30-second answer from each of you. And then we'll dive deeper into the conversation. And the goal is not for you to just give your answers and look at the audience, although you can do that. But I would like you to encourage you to talk to each other, like maybe you might hear something that either you agree with or disagree with, and have further conversation if that seems to make sense. So we're going to start with this topic question, and Glenda, you'll go first with your answer on this for the 30-second part. It's a topic that's on many people's minds these days, the proposed property tax levy that will appear on the general election ballot. And in 30 seconds, could you state your position on the levy with a top reason for that view? And then we're going to talk more about that during the discussion. So, Glenda?
Yes, I can. I realize the city of Edmonds does need help with the deficit. I am not so sure that 14.5 million is the number. I was in the city council meeting when they made that discussion and came to that number from 6 million to 23 million, and suddenly 14.5 million was the number they came up with. The fact that 5 out of 7 city council members voted for that made me wonder, why aren't they all talking about it and vetting it more?
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you. We actually spent a lot of time on this right after I was elected in November 2023. So the bulk of 2024 digging in really deeply and combing over all of the details and doing the research, listening to the public. And it's unfortunate, but we're at the point where I feel this is important to do. And 6 million will not get us out of the hole. 6 million is what we borrowed internally that we have to pay back. So really doing so just keeps us in the status quo. 14.5 actually starts to dig us out of the hole and give us some leverage to start to move forward. I understand it's really hard. In these positions, you have to make really hard decisions.
Thank you very much. So this is, I know, a very passionate topic, and I know that both of you have either on the council or in the audience heard the discussions and heard the reasons. And I guess I'll just kind of start this conversation and ask you to talk about it. What do you say to people who really are worried about the financial part of this, that they just feel like they can't afford it? And I'd love to hear from both of you about that, because I'm sure you're getting those questions. Neither one of you can start, I don't care.
Well, I've knocked on a lot of doors and talked to a lot of people, and I probably should have more doors knocked on under my belt. However, people want to talk about how fearful they are about losing the ability to stay in their home because their taxes are going to go up so much. A sitting city council member said, we have been kicking the can down the road from 2008. So the question is, why have they been kicking the can down since 2008? Why now are we being told we have to help with a $14.5 million levy? Why didn't the city come to the public before that, years before that, and say, we've got a problem, we need to solve it, and we need to find a way to do it, and let's engage with that? The number would have been a lot less then than it is now.
I've been on council less than 2 years. I've been asking the same questions. This has been years in the making, and we haven't dealt with infrastructure issues. We haven't even taken the 1% increase in property taxes that we've been able to take at times. So the rubber's hitting the road. We're reaching that point right now where we absolutely have to take action. We have to take measures. And none of this is pleasant. And I do understand, I worked with vulnerable people in my career. I've been in human services for 10 years. And there are some options for some relief. And I realize there's a lot of people right above that threshold. And you're probably hurting right now because of utilities and property taxes. This doesn't make it better, but unfortunately, property taxes are the largest source of revenue for our city. And we will be also looking for additional millions of non-property tax revenue just to get us some momentum moving forward and to continue to scrutinize every purchase, every single budget, so that we're good stewards and we don't get back into this hole.
Well, I'm disappointed that when the budget did come out, that there wasn't more discussion about metrics and systems in place to analyze how departments are performing and whether we need to cut or, certainly determine how those departments are going to function, or do we need them at all? That is disappointing. I sit on a lot of other boards. Currently, right now, I sit on 3 different boards, and they have budgets, and they have metrics, and they go 2 to 5 years down the road to see if those departments are going to be feasible to fund like they currently are. And I don't feel like the city of Edmonds has actually taken that position. If you watch these city council meetings, you will have a couple of city council members ask, where are the metrics? Do you have any data to show where you're going to be in 2 years? And the answer from the department's heads is no. And so that's unfortunate, and it's disappointing, and it's helped us get to where we are today. Nobody knows if they are going to be able to function in 2 years in their department if they aren't looking 2 years down the road.
And I have to wonder if my opponent, and I'm sure she's a very nice person, is running against the city and the city governments of the past, or for this position, and to actually come to solutions for actually how to fix this problem, which I've actually been doing the work in almost the last 2 years. So we have worked on more reporting, better reporting. When I joined, there were things that weren't even visible to council, and shame on us in the past for not having better reporting. It's gotten better. Is it perfect? No, but we've evolved the visibility of the data.
Thanks to you both. I appreciate your good discussion. I like that. This is what we want to do. It's good. Thanks. All right. So question 2, in 30 seconds again, we'll do this drill. And we'll start with Councilmember Eck for a response. List the top 3 steps you think Edmonds should take to be more friendly to those wanting to establish a business here. And we'll go into more detail in the discussion part.
I have a lot of energy around this. I had the pleasure of being liaison to the Economic Development Commission since elected, and right now it's on pause, but I still go when they do ad hoc meetings. There is a marvelous white paper that will not solve it all, but it actually gives a roadmap, particularly to the businesses on Highway 99, for how we support them and also draw in additional mid-sized businesses that will help us diversify our revenue. The city benefits from millions of dollars in revenue from Highway 99, and there's so much potential. And that's going to be one of my number one priorities.
Thank you.
I agree. Edmonds does have the ability to increase its taxable real estate base and sales tax along Highway 99, but we haven't done anything for a very long time. We have a family fun center that's just sitting there empty. Nefarious activity goes on in there, draining our, police force going there constantly to address that item. Why don't we put the pickleball kingdom in there? I mean, nobody is actually going out and advocating for the city of Edmonds, trying to find businesses that will come in on Highway 99.
Thanks. I think that this gets at a point that I've heard discussed in council meetings, especially lately. The desire for economic development is always there. The staffing to do it has been limited, especially in the last year or two with all of the budget challenges. But, given that, what do you think is, staffing aside, and this is an open question for both of you, what do you think is missing that would kind of jumpstart some of that discussion?
Well, I was disappointed to see that Highway 99 wasn't included in the comp plan for density. You could do mixed use on Highway 99 with some possibly zoning changes that would have retail, residential, that might give us some more moderately priced available condos or apartments to rent on Highway 99, where mass transit is, which is what density really was about when we fought for those housing bills in Olympia, to be around transit areas. It would be nice to see more attention spent up there. But I mean, we did have a full-time economic development member working for the city, and nothing was ever done. We need to collaborate with the chamber to do that more, the port, but we need to bring in more revenue, whether it be real estate tax or, commercial or sales tax. We need to really concentrate on Highway 99, where there's a lot of availability.
So Highway 99 is already zoned for business and for multifamily. And it's been that way, actually zoned for 4,000 units for the past few years, even before this year's comp plan update. Now, one should logically ask, why is that not drawing businesses? I do think it's the inability to solely staff the position and not have them work off the side of their desk. If we're really serious about economic development, we need to put our money where our mouth is. And with this particular budget that we're looking at right now, there is a position solely dedicated to economic development, thank goodness. And I would like to see collaboration with the chamber. In fact, I approached the president of the chamber last year, and there was a very good openness. And I'd like to see actually some leverage between that position and our new economic development staff.
Well, I would really like to know who you talked to at the chamber about that, because we talked at a meeting today that we wish the city would reach out to us and actually talk to I'm chair of the chamber this year, would talk to the chamber about actually redeveloping parts of Highway 99. So I'm just curious who you might have talked to, because we are still suffering on Highway 99. I've talked to Campbell Nelson, Linwood Honda, and they are fearful right now that they just are not getting the business they should. And with an increase in sales tax, B&O tax, people are already going to Burlington or Puyallup to purchase their vehicles. That is some sales revenue we could be getting from those car companies that we're not getting right now.
Well, and truthfully, it was the executive director of the chamber, who I actually know personally, who I spoke with. So we know that buying is actually down all over. And, if folks choose to go somewhere else to get a cheaper price in a car, I absolutely can't blame them. But we're in the position right now where every bit of revenue for our city counts. And I hate to say that we're in that position, but from a mature, logical standpoint, that's where we are right now. And other sources of revenue are absolutely on the table, and we're always looking for creative ways to add to that menu of revenue that we need to go after.
Great. Okay, thanks to you both for that. If we had more time, I'd have more follow-up questions, but we covered some good things. All right, the last question of the three that we're going to ask tonight, and then we'll get to your questions, is in 30 seconds, and we'll start with Glenda for the answer to this one. Provide an overview of your strategy as a city council member to engage Edmonds residents, especially those who are traditionally underserved, and we'll talk in more detail as we get into the discussion. So 30 seconds.
Well, currently I sell real estate. I've been a real estate broker for 32 years. I sit on the local real estate board. I am the vice chair of the government affairs. I do spend a lot of time working with our elected officials from this county, state, and even national perspective. I can bring a lot of knowledge from that. I have personal relationships with a lot of our elected officials who have spoken to me about housing bills and things like that.
Thank you.
And me too, I almost talk daily to area officials and have many healthy relationships. But more than that, when I worked full-time up until recently as a VP of programs at VOA, I would still make time for coffee, for conversations in person or by phone as people contact me. Additionally, going out to all of our various lovely festivals and that kind of thing, and actually making myself available to the public. Now that I'm not working during the day, I actually intend to start having office hours, and not just at City Hall, but around different parts of the city.
Thank you. So let's dive a little deeper into that topic, and let's specifically talk about the issue with underserved communities. There are a lot of communities, and Edmonds is becoming increasingly diverse, especially in certain neighborhoods. And what do you think the city could be doing a better job of? I mean, I know that the intentions are always good. We translate things into certain languages. We all do our best to try to engage, but there's some things that we're missing in terms of how we should be doing a better job of that.
Can I go first?
Sure.
One example is our DEIA commission that's on pause. I was actually honored to be liaison for that commission as well. And it was a wonderful experience. And I'm not just talking LGBTQIA, although that representation is incredibly important for our community. I'm talking about cultural diversity. I'm talking about people who need accommodations for disabilities. We had that representation in that particular committee that unfortunately it's being paused. So that's one way. I love Edmonds diversity. And I embrace it, and it's so incredibly important. Recently, I actually heard that our Economic Development Commission was going to go out and talk to business owners. I was the one who asked that we have interpreters available so that we're really talking to all of our businesses.
Well, so far the city has not developed a system where they are doing outreach to those communities. Case in point is when the parks were on the agenda to just talk about possibly selling them. It seems like nobody really knew about it until somebody started putting flyers out on doors around there. We got to do a better job of getting information out to our residents. There are lots of different ways to do that. For goodness sakes, AI's got a lot of great ways to do it. It just seems like there should be more being done for that.
As one single council member, I can tell you what I do. And that is make sure that, again, I'm available. Where I see that there's a gap, I have a duty to speak up, and I have, if we're not making sure everybody feels included. And, those things are incredibly important. We don't live in a homogenous society. We need to make sure everyone here feels valued, heard, and actually a part of the decisions that are occurring in our city.
Still, there are a lot of people that aren't getting heard. And if they don't think there's enough being done, then there isn't enough being done. And just being out in public and answering emails and phone calls and meeting with those that you want to meet to doesn't mean we're reaching those that we're not reaching. It's very It's an easy concept to think about. I know that there are text programs that can be purchased. There are email programs that can be purchased that you would actually get out to constituents and say, this issue is coming up on the city council. We invite you to attend, or give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. But the residents of Edmonds don't feel like there's any kind of communication that's being forthcoming like that. I know it because I've talked to a lot of people who are very frustrated. They don't find out there's a problem until there's a problem. And then it's too late. And then everyone's angry and they're coming into a city council meeting with the pitchforks and fire and they're frustrated. And then you have completely eroded any trust that you may have had in the past.
I'm not here to defend the administration or any other council members, and so I can't really speak to what other council members and the mayor and the administration are doing. What I can do is speak to you as what I can do as one single council member, and these are all great ideas. These are all things that we absolutely should be looking at. We should be listening to all of your ideas and really putting things to the test and seeing what works best. I completely agree. We can absolutely do better as a city government. I could always do better as a council member, but I'm not here to defend the administration.
You have one more thing you wanted to add? Okay, good.
We've still got 1.5 minutes.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, keep talking then. If you want. If you don't, we'll go to Q&A. If you have more ideas,
No.
we have.
Well, you know, in my line of work, communication is paramount, and if I get an email, I better answer it, or, you know, there's a possibility I'm going to lose that client. So I'm very accessible, always have been. My cell phone goes with me everywhere. I know that city council members get volumes and volumes and volumes of email, and that it's difficult to answer every one of them. So I totally understand that. But I do think keeping the lines of communication open and at least acknowledging you've received a request from somebody, even if you don't know the answer to it, get back to someone and say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will get back to you, because I myself have written city council members and have not heard back or got an answer of, let's agree to disagree. And that, to me, is not an answer to a resident of Edmonds who is emailing the city council member and asking for clarification on something.
Well, and actually I did get an email from you that I responded, and it was a whole lot more than let's agree to disagree. I actually gave my reasoning behind what had happened. But let's talk about it. I actually do usually say thank you so much for your email. And if I need to look into it, I'll see. I'll get back to you. Am I getting back to 100% of people that email me? I'm going to be honest, I don't. Sometimes we get thousands. I try to do my best, but typically you're going to get an answer from me at some point. I can't speak to other council members in the administration what they do or don't do, but it is one value that's really important to me, is to get back to people.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we're going to go to the Q&A card from the audience. And each candidate will get 1 minute to answer.
My name is Erica, and I'm an Edmonds resident. And my question is, what is the first thing you would cut from the budget if you were elected for this next session? And how much would it be?
How much would you trim? Is that what you said?
The first thing, and what would be the first thing you would trim?
What would be the first thing and how much
Yeah.
to cut from the budget?
I can go first. Well, last year we decided as a council to cut $8 million from the budget, and that was a combination of open positions, selling some assets, renting some assets out, laying people off. So we've already laid off quite a bit of staff. What would I cut more? Actually, in the current budget, we're trying to build some of those supports back. You know, I fought really hard to keep at least one human services person. For example, we cut 2 of those. We cut City Hall out on Highway 99, which was really a nice service to the community out there. So until we fish through the budget, so I'm really not trying to put off your question. At this point, we're at a point of trying to restore some of those vital services that many community members have said that they would like. You know, we're on our table is to get rid of our legislative aid, and I would be all for doing that and saying that we just have to do our own admin work.
As a member of the public, I look at the the agenda when it comes out before I go to the city council meeting, and I see how much gets spent on a lot of things. And probably one of the first things I would think about cutting back on is the amount of money that we pay the city attorney to keep us in litigation. It's very frustrating to see all that money every month get paid for things like tree issues or taking property from a condo development just so that the city can do something with it, which they haven't. I think there's a lot of waste there, and there's just a lot of things that we don't need to pay for. We're going to pay our attorney to write tree code now. That doesn't seem right either. That would be one of the first things. Now, because I'm a member of the public, I can't see what their departments are doing because they don't have any metrics or any kind of system that will show you how that department is developing. It feels like the money is going into a black hole, honestly.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll draw another number and see if this one is successful.
493. 493.
Can I ask one of the candidates a question?
Thank you.
I'm Scott Shelburne, and resident of the city for more than 30 years. I'm sorry I have to read this. This is for candidate Pearl. We both have the pleasure of sitting on a subcommittee of a local arts organization. I have an observation question. Ms. Pearl, for as long as I can remember, I cannot think of a time when you have spoken at any of the meetings of this committee. No questions, comments, contributions of any kind. My question, what has your silent presence contributed to the committee, and what can you say to allay my deep concerns that if elected to the Edmonds City Council, you will not behave similarly, simply sitting there, not participating or contributing anything?
I have contributed on several different times. I've actually spoken with the chair of the committee on several different times about things. I've been on that committee for about a year now, and certainly have shown up at every meeting, and I think one, I wasn't able because I was out of town, and have actually participated. You probably don't remember, but I have.
Okay, we'll get on to, that was only for one candidate, so we'll get on to the next number, which is 486.
Georgina Armstrong, what are your thoughts on how to balance mandates for increased city density and the need for environmental protections?
You want to start this?
Yeah. I've thought a lot about this because the environmental aspects are so important to me. Being on the tree board and even before that, I'm a longtime environmentalist. So it's not an easy balance, but it's a false choice to say that we can't do all that and do the other thing. And so in my view, at least it's so the centers and hubs model that we put into our comprehensive plan is by far not perfect. But what it does do, and it's very deliberate, it keeps growth, or encourages it rather through zoning, to be in these areas away from our critical areas. And also, I think it will help protect our tree canopy. We also need to, as an aside, look at our tree code once we have an urban forester, someone who's an expert, to have it completely revamped and buttoned up so we can actually do a better job at keeping our tree canopy. But it's gonna entail continued work. We have to continue to be mindful and see where we need to adjust the plan along the way, because once things are gone, you don't get them back, right? When we talk about parks going away, when we don't get them back. So it's something that's extremely important to me.
Your turn.
Well, the city appears to be conflicted about their tree code right now, and with more density, because you can't have more density and trees all at the same time. The hubs that the Planning Commission has put forth does really take the trees out in a lot of those areas. Infrastructure is important, but we have to be really careful how we put the density into the city of Edmonds. There's a lot of critical areas. There's the salmon streams, runoff from construction into the salmon streams is very detrimental to the salmon coming back. There is a wastewater treatment plant that we currently have right now that is not working correctly. We've spent over $34 million in the last 5 years, and that has just gone into a black hole also. If we're going to put density in there, we need to be very mindful of all of those things. And right now, it just feels like it's one or the other, but it can't be both.
Teresa,
Yeah, but if you do, then she gets one more too. Sure.
absolutely. I want to also just do a reminder that our comp plan is not something that will, so the growth won't happen overnight. It's actually at least a 20-year plan, if not more, because the first step was the zoning, the rezoning. Now it's really up to the market and the developers to decide if they even want to come in and build in those areas. As we saw with Highway 99, they haven't been chomping at the bit to go ahead and take advantage of the zoning out there. So I have to believe that it's going to be a very gradual thing over time. A lot of people will still want to build single-family homes, and they still have that option. No one can make you sell your property so that it can be developed if you don't want to. And you as property owners still have lots of options. So this is something that's going to be very gradual. Many of these areas may not even get developed, but we had the obligation to the state to have a plan, and it's, to me, a good start.
There was an obligation, obviously, yes, to have a plan. However, the city has taken it a little bit further than what those bills were actually intended to be interpreted. I was one of the realtors that went to Olympia and talked with our elected officials about those housing bills. And before we left every one of our elected officials' offices, we turned and said, if it makes sense and do no harm to real estate. There's a difference between complying and capitulating. And I think right now the city of Edmonds is working way too hard on putting too much density into the city, and they really should concentrate in other areas. Highway 99 has all the transit up there that will work fine for that type of thing, but the city itself doesn't. And taking away parking on multifamily and 55 and over and affordable housing makes no sense, because you're just going to add to the issues that we have now, which is no way to get to public transportation.
I think we can talk about this for a really long time. Thank you both. So it's time for closing statements. And we will start with Ms. Kroll, because we started with Ms. Eck to begin with, and you have 30 seconds.
I am running for Edmonds City Council because this is the city I love. I have lived here 25 years. I've done real estate in the area 32 years, and I am passionate about Edmonds. I serve on a lot of local boards here. A couple of them will naturally just be finished in 2026, so I will have time to actually invest into a job of working on the city council. I am also, while I do sit on other boards, I know Robert's rules, and I know how to make a motion, and I know how to speak to it, so there is a learning curve we don't have to do.
Thank you.
Yes, I've also been on many boards, including the Snohomish County Planning Commission and United Way and many others, even before coming here. And as a human services executive, my life is really all about serving my community. And so this to me is just a piece of that that's extremely important. You can live here a few months, you can live here 50, 60 years, which I completely honor that people love the city so much that they spend their lives here. But you could be here for a few months and feel a huge stake in want our city to succeed and be of just the same value. And I want us to treat everyone with the same level of respect.
Thank you very much.
And acceptance. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to both candidates. Please give them a round of applause. All right, we're here. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for putting this on.
You're welcome. So we start out with an opening statement from you, and that's 1 minute.
Yeah, I just want to express my appreciation for everybody being here. It's been said before, you care about your community deeply, so much that you are willing to pay $7.50 to be here and put the Mariners games behind. I was born and raised in China, put myself through schools, getting my master's degrees from the University of Iowa, my MBA, have a successful accounting firm in town, and was incredible honor to serve as your council member for the last 4 years. In terms of my priorities, it continued to be public safety, housing, and financial transparency. As a city, we ought to tax only what we need, not what we can. And I want to take this moment to let you know that I'm your neighbor. I'm not a politician, and I want to work with you to solve our issues and all together make a better community.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that about being a good steward of taxpayer funds, because that's going to be the first question. So you have probably been about the most talked about person in Edmonds in the last few weeks, because you happened to mention in an interview that the city has money and you think the levy is too high, and you talked about some different options for where we could find some money. So tell me more about what you mean by that. And there's been some discussion about, well, we have money, no, we don't have money, only we have this much money we can get to. When you talk about the city having some availability of funds, tell me more about your thought process on that.
Thank you, Teresa. So let me kind of take us down into the memory lane a little bit. When I first was elected, I noticed our city has been spending money that's way outpaced our revenues. And I was the whistleblower. I was spoken up at the council meeting. I tried to email our administration at the time, but it seems like it goes nowhere. So I had to write an article to call the council and the administration at the time to work together to solve our financial crisis. So fast forward, now while we're developing the 2025-2026 biennial budget, we work really hard. The council, the new administration, we work together to develop, do a lot of community outreach. We had hired consultants, very experienced consultants who had done this work in many, many jurisdictions to help us, and also community surveys. And we land on a workable solution for a biennial budget, which is the 2025 and 2026 budget. And by the way, in 2025, the $8 million that was saving, those savings were counting the positions that was never filled before. Like in the police department, we had 11 vacancies. So those savings that was not filling those positions will count towards the savings. So if we use that same logic, then we always have been saving all along from many, many years, because for many years we did have those unfilled vacancies. So we work really hard to cut services along the city, and most of the cuts are on Highway 99. We close out the neighborhood center, we delay the capital projects on Highway 99 development. There was different stages. I was so happy to see stage number 1 and number 2 that was completed, and we had the center medians and the green belt in the middle.
Yeah,
can I have more time?
Yeah, we need more time because we haven't gotten to the question. So
Okay.
we're going to take just a little bit more clear, maybe give us another minute or so. I think what many people want to know is, there is an amount that keeps getting talked about that you have said could be available for future use, and others have too. And let's talk about how much of that money, because some people disagree with that and say most of that money really isn't available, or is hard to get to. This 79 million is the latest figure I heard. So tell me about that 79 million and how much of it really could the council access if, for example, the levy failed and we needed to go back to a smaller amount. How much could we really get to quickly or easily?
Yeah, so the conversation, the background of that was the interview that I had with Alisa Crane. And her question was, if the $14.5 million levy failed, what's your plan? So my response was, if this bigger levy failed, then we need to look at options. And one of the options is we had $79 million cash that's sitting in our investment pool, in our CD, in various accounts. Of course, those funds, it belongs to our cities, have many different funds, right? Out of that was about $2.2 million, that's the general fund balance, which is our reserve balance. And there were the internal service fund, 511 and 512. Those monies are money we set aside for rental, for car maintenance. But right now we have a very healthy fund balance for these two funds. So there's about $5 million excess balance. Yes, we do need to put money aside for our vehicle maintenance, for our leases. But if the levy fails, then we have to look at options. And this $5 million is some potential funds that we can use to bridge the gap before we issue a more reasonable levy amount that would be supported by the community. And that amount, while we were developing the 2025-2026 biennial budget, we worked very hard, I said. That amount we identified, including community input and also consultant input, that was $6 million that were identified in the 2026 budget.
So I interviewed the mayor and the finance director, and they both said that there's really about $1 million that could be easily accessed. So do you disagree with that?
So I'm not speaking on their behalf, but my educated guess, I'm a CPA and I look at the financial statements closely, that number is easily can access without any council actions or legal advice.
The $1 million.
The $1 million.
Okay.
But the $5 million and the rest of the money, we need to make a plan and see if we can either borrow, like with 2025, we borrowed $6 million from the utility funds. But of course, when you borrow money, you have to pay it back with interest.
Right.
Yeah, so that's just a loan. But in terms of the 511 and 512, the internal service fund, those money we put aside, they're coming from general fund and utility fund to begin with. So they could be returned to where they came from.
So it could be a loan. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for indulging me. Thank you for the timer for indulging me, because I really wanted to get into that a little bit. So let's talk about engagement, community engagement, because I know this is something that you have been, we talked a little bit about it with the other candidates as well, but I know it's something that's been a priority for you, and I heard the other candidates talking about it, and it seems to me it's hard. It's hard work, right? To try to figure out how to get people involved in government who are so busy, have busy lives, or however the reasons. What do you think the city's not doing that it should?
Yeah, definitely it is hard. And I'm personally committed. Even though I'm running unopposed, I'm here. I'm interviewing Alisa Crane, I'm outdoor building, I'm talking to residents, talking to business owners. I'm personally committed. And the thing is, government has certain limitations on what we can do. I mean, the government cannot do everything. And that's why I personally, and thanks to Robert Ha and the team back there, I personally formed the Asian Service Center as a channel to reach out to the underserved community. And our goal as a service center is to breaking barriers and building bridges between the underserved and the city government and the broader community as a whole. We have successfully, thanks to the Waterfront Center, give us this beautiful area to conduct our business. We have successfully put on one of our signature events is the Dragon Boat Festival. And give all the credits to Robert Ha back there and Mr. Kim, the whole team there. A year ago, the first time the very inaugural Dragon Boat Festival, we drove over 1,000 people. And it was such an event that it combined the cultural performances, the food, and the weather, and the activity the Dragon Boat has over 2,000 years of history. It has such a rich history, and I really love it. Get out, and so this is the kind of commitments that I have as a person, as an individual, as a community member, and I will continue to do that.
Is there anything you think that could be done that isn't being done now in terms of outreach just in general for the city? Or I heard some good ideas just in the last conversation, texts, emails, things that maybe we're not doing. And of course, I know we have budget issues right now, but is there one idea maybe that comes to mind that you think you'd like to try?
Good ideas doesn't always cost money. Sometimes it's an idea that people embraces, and people will just roll up their sleeves and jump in. We could do a community cleanup, and which one of the ideas that I had, and we could go ahead and implement is we have 47 parks in our city. For a small city, 43,000 people, we have 47 parks. But let me get to my idea. My idea is we have each park have one volunteer group and headed by one volunteer person to organize, take care of the parks. That can happen, and people will have ownerships and they will take care of their parks.
I actually think Mount Lake Terrace does that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost the city a dime.
Yeah, thank you, Bennett. That's a great idea. All right, third question. You have said in the past, and I know you just said it tonight, that public safety is one of your priorities. And I know you've talked about it quite a bit in council meetings. But I've also heard you say that ask questions about the police budget, which has drawn a lot of questions from the community about whether it's too high, whether we're spending too much. Have you, and I think you might have even asked a question or two during budget discussions about the police budget. So do you think our police budget is too high? Do you think there's room for cut?
Public safety is definitely my top priorities. You consider the high crime areas on Highway 99, that's where I live. That's my neighborhood. So our police deserve adequately being funded. But if you look at our history of our budget, when I joined the City Council in 2021, our budget was $13 million. And 2025, our police budget is $19 million. And next year, the proposed budget is going up to $22 million. So every year, we have stepped up. And that's considered the 11 vacant positions that was not filled. So just consider that. We have valued our police. And during the budget, the 2026 modified budget, which we are making a budget based on the money that we don't have yet. So that question was like, looking at the trend of the budget increase and the headcount, my question was, what's the upper limit? That was my question.
Yeah, and I do know, just to be fair, because I've heard this conversation as well, there has been some reorganization of the department to have some new functions that has caused some of that increase, but I also know that there's been discussion that there's still more than there used to be, and that's part of your point, I think.
Correct. Yeah. So there were, like, for example, the jail cost was moved
Right.
into the police department. So
And human services.
yeah, human services. That's one
Emergency
account.
manager.
Yeah, emergency manager. That position is vacant right now. So that's in the proposed budget in 2026. But you consider those transport budget over, that's no more than $1 million. But our increase has been stated. So
Okay.
we do value, we do fund our police.
All right, that's great. Anything else you want to say on that topic? Or if not, we're going to go to questions.
I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to step down.
Hi, Will. I just have a generic question here. With the $14.5 million Prop 1, if it passes, we all know that everybody's taxes are going up. But with the RFA, which was voted in at the beginning of the year, I believe, why is the past tax because the city didn't know that they had to pay on a contract that we're trying to cancel? Is that where that came from?
Can I get some help understanding the question?
I see online and everything that there's two charges for RFA. One for back RFA taxes and one for new current RFA taxes. Is that the truth?
So the IFA, in April, we voted, everybody voted. So there was 67% to agree to join the IFA and become a member. So start from June 1st, we have, as a city, become a member of the Regional Fire Authority. So that means we no longer contract with them. So there are some negotiation and clarification about whether should we pay from June to December or not. But as of now, our city is still paying. But start January 2026, we're definitely not paying. But for these 6 months, I think there is still room for clarification.
And with the RFA, talking about the RFA, I saw in the paper today, I think it was Men, I'm not sure, that the fire department's asking for $7 more from everybody. Okay, what the hell is that about? They want $7 more from us. Okay, I'm not paying it. I'm just telling you.
So that decision is beyond my pay grade. That decision is belong to the IFA commissioners. They have a commissioners, and they decided what rate to assess the whole region.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, I think we're just going to go to your closing statement. 30 seconds.
Again, I'm incredibly honored for your support. I love this city not only because of its charm and its character. I love this city because of the people, all of you who make up this city, especially for senior residents who live here for 50 years, or over 50 years, who build this community. I think we need to respect and honor your existence and your services. And I stand to be financially transparent, and I want to set our cities on long-term financial stability.
Thank you, Will. Please give him a round of applause.
Perfect. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, all of you, for coming. I know you're missing the Mariners game, but from what I can see on my phone, we're not missing a whole lot. So hopefully this is worth your while. I'm Erica Barnett. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a wife, a mother, a small business owner, and a longtime Edmonds resident. My husband and I build our lives here. We're raising our kids in the Edmonds School District and running our small business associate brewing company right here in downtown. Edmonds is at a pivotal moment. We're facing real challenges. We have our fiscal pressures and regional growth demands, and we need leadership that is steady, collaborative, and focused on the future. I've spent my career in leading strategic planning and business operations for organizations like Microsoft, helping large cross-functional teams streamline budgets, reduce waste, and improve performance. And as a small business owner, I've had to make every dollar work while supporting the people who support our business and our town. It's this blend of real world problem solving and people first leadership that I'll bring to City Hall. Leadership that listens before it acts, asks smart questions, and focuses on measurable outcomes. Thank you.
Mr. Newman?
All right, thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight. Thank you so much, everyone who's watching at home tomorrow. I'm Alex Newman. I am so grateful to be here in front of you all today. When I'm not running for this position, I'm proud to serve as the Executive Director for the American Red Cross of Northwest Washington, where I have the ability and the privilege to work on $10+ million budgets for disaster responses, for the worst things that happen in our local communities and our communities across the country to respond in times of emergency. And I think that we can all agree right now that there is a financial emergency happening in Edmonds at this moment. My priorities are about public safety, are about affordability, and about protecting our environment. Those are the things that I'm going to prioritize once we have stabilized this budget crisis that we're in. Over the time that I've been on this campaign, I've been knocking on an enormous amount of doors. And the things that I have been hearing from people are concerned about the budget, the concern about our environment, and the concern about affordability and transparency in how we're making decisions as a city. So I'm really looking forward to addressing those and answering your questions tonight.
Thank you very much to you both. All right. Normally when I structure these, I try not to ask the same question more than once for each group of candidates, so nobody has an advantage, but the property tax levy is one that I believe needs to be asked to each group. So we will start with that. Mr. Newman, you can answer the first. This is again, if you remember from the first time, we're going to talk about in 30 seconds, state your position on the levy with the top reason for that view, and then we'll have time to further dive in with the discussion. So you're up, 30 seconds.
Awesome, thank you. The levy. I think that it is a huge, huge ask of the people of this city to say that you've just had a raise in your property taxes from the RFA, and we're going back again to ask that. I can say that personally, as much as that is a challenging decision, I am going to be voting yes on the levy. And for me, that is because I've seen the budget, I've seen the things that had to be cut last year, especially around our parks and our public safety, our police department being cut by about 50%. That's too much, and I think that we need this levy as the short-term stopgap to re-engage services.
Thank you. Don't worry, you're not done. Your turn, Ms. Barnett.
Well, I actually sat through the entire process that we came up with the levy lid lift. I sat in on Mayor Rosen's budget prioritization panel. It was myself and many financial experts and citizens from across Edmonds. And given my background in strategic budget planning at Microsoft, I was ready to dive in. And the process we were giving was theoretical questions around whether parks are more important than bike lanes and how important are flower beds and a ranking exercise. And I really think that we can go through and do better. Each one of the ways in which you put together your budget needs to have metrics that showcase what are we getting for those dollars, what are we spending, and what's the outcome, so that then you can make critical decisions around what does get cut. Otherwise, you cut blindly. Thank you.
You're on a roll, I know. All right, so, I asked this question of the other folks, and I think it's an important question to talk about. Because you have some different points of view, although I didn't hear you exactly say whether you were supporting it or not, but you may want to elaborate further. So what are the kind of biggest concerns as both of you are at Jorville, and I'm sure there are folks who tell you they are really worried about not being able to afford this. And what would you say to, how do you address that as you're going through your thought process if you were a council member and knowing that people are in that boat of feeling like they just can't pay that tax bill? Eric, why don't you start?
All right, well, the deficit is real. That is true. It's the issue I take with is the number that they came up with. They did not use proper zero-based budgeting or outcome-based budgeting practices in order to come up with that. So if it passes, yes, we will have our safety net. We will know that short-term, all core services are shored up, and we will be able to move forward. But we will need to do those metrics even more so. People need to justify every single dollar that is being spent and what the outcome is. And if it is determined that there are services where 80% is going to overhead and only 20% to actual delivery of those services, then perhaps those programs need to go or be reimagined. But we need to have some kind of a scorecard so that we can then cut services that are not necessary, and we can actually do a tax cut or in the levy early to give the money back. If it doesn't pass, we would go through the same exercise, but to come back with the actual number that is needed to continue forward and have the outcomes that the city deserves.
Yeah, I agree with portions of that, certainly. I think, I really want to be clear in the way that I'm communicating with all of you about my views on any of these issues. I want to be able to tell you exactly why I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote on my personal ballots. And that, as I said, is yes. I'm sorry, Erica, can I ask you, I don't know what your answer was to yes or no on levy.
Thank you.
Myself, I will be voting no.
Okay. Thank you. I really just believe that at this point, we've seen those signs crop up across town, in our parks, in so many of them, to say that there is deferred maintenance. This area is closed. This is not happening. And that is a direct result of the structural problem that our tax system has created, that we have not been able to keep up with rising rising costs. A lot of that is because of state laws that have created these restrictions on them, and that's a good thing, that we have to put this to voters to be able to thumbs up or thumbs down things like that. But it's really important that I think that when we look at the way that the budget is changing, is growing, what has happened over the last 4 years, realistically? Enormous inflation across our economy that everyone is feeling, and cities are not exempt from that. And the fact that they have not been able to raise the revenue that they need to keep the things going that we all live here for our parks, for these safe neighborhoods, for the opportunities for the business community. This is what is so important to all of us. And when we're not investing in that, that's what really scares me, especially as a younger person in this race, as a younger person in this community. When we're not investing in ourselves, I really am genuinely concerned.
I am more than invested in Edmonds. When Edmonds thrives, we all thrive. I'm not saying that I don't believe we need a levy. I take issue with the number. I think the number is excessive for the city. I also think that we are over-reliant on property taxes for the city's revenue. I have been the Vice President of Business Development for corporations in the past, and that is an area that I really think we need to double down on. Our Highway 99 should look like Linwood's 196. We should have all kinds of retail tax dollars and revenue coming into the city that would totally offset the need for this level of property tax. So I do want us to go back to be more conservative with what we're asking of the city, and for us as a city to do a better job of finding something other than our homeowners' pockets to fund the city resources.
Can I continue? Okay, thank you. I think that right now, just the way that we're structured, the way that we have the proportions in our revenue budget, it is incredibly disproportionate. It is skewed so heavily towards property owners, and that's because of a lack of this long-term plan that we need to make sure that we are diversifying those revenue streams. The short-term crisis requires a short-term solution, unfortunately. And that is, I think, the only way to be truly fiscally responsible, is to address that and tell this painful truth to so many of us. It hurts me that this is the situation that we're in, honestly. But we are. I would like to have been on council 5 years ago and been able to say, these costs are ballooning. We need to do something about this now before it gets out of hand and have a lower amount. But we're beyond that point, I believe. So what it means then is that we need to have medium-term planning that's going to look like not just the adoption of the biennial budget that we have been doing recently, which I think is an important step in the right direction, but I like the 5-year budgets. That's what I'm used to working within in nonprofit work and managing donor dollars with very much care, is having overlapping 5-year budgets that you are able to plan multiple years and cycles in advance and be able to adjust them in the middle instead of just relying year to year. And then the long-term planning, making sure that we have real business centers that are thriving. We love our downtown community, and it has got real success. And we don't just want that to happen only in that one community, only in that one neighborhood of town. I love what I'm seeing in the Perrinville area. I love what I'm starting to see in the Five Corners area, where you have different business centers that are coming up, that we are allowing for that type of growth. And I agree that I think the area around Highway 99 is a huge opportunity for that sort of income as well.
All right, I think we've gotten good answers on those. Let's go on to the next question. Ms. Barnett, on your campaign website, you say you're committed to protecting Edmonds' charm through thoughtful growth and development planning. And Mr. Newman, your campaign website says you support diverse housing solutions that protect neighborhood character, support renters, and ease barriers to homeownership. In 30 seconds, and we'll start with you, Ms. Barnett, could you define charm, and then Mr. Newman, could you define character?
Yeah.
So starting with you, Ms. Barnett. What is charm?
What is charm? Well, charm is Edmonds. Charm is all of you. Charm is a city that cares, that each and every one of us shows up every day. I've never seen a city where the people in this town care as much about where they live, and it shows. It shows in the care we take to our small businesses. The fact that you all support all of these mom and pops, mine being one of them, is amazing. You come out for each and every volunteer organization. You show up for all the community events, the Dragon Boat Festival. We are Edmonds, and we are everywhere, and that is what makes this town charming. We are blessed to live in such a wonderful place as this waterfront community, and we have a responsibility to be good environmental stewards and maintain that charm and the character and the essence of Edmonds for years to come.
And neighborhood character, these are clearly an area of big difference, right? Charm and neighborhood character.
Right.
I think that neighborhood character to me is making sure that the people who have lived here for decades, that moved into their communities because they love that specific community, not just Edmonds as a whole, but not just the neighborhood as a whole, the street they live on means everything to people. And so as we grow, as we change, there is some change that's going to need to happen there, but making sure that those solutions are adapted to those specific neighborhoods, to those specific streets. If there is going to be changes in any kind of building codes, those need to be adapted to those areas specifically.
Okay, so there's some undercurrents of conversation here that I think you both have touched on a bit, and I think you might have some different viewpoints, you might have similar viewpoints, I'm not sure. But as we talk about growth and development related to charm and character, there are decisions that have to be made, and some of them have already been made because the state has changed some of its laws and we have to accommodate. But as we work through that, I would like each of you, both of you, to talk a little bit more about what the approach should be. I mean, we seem to strongly value in many parts of Edmonds our single-family neighborhoods, and that is changing. And does that risk the charm and character? How do we blend those things? Either one of you can start.
I think that when we think about Edmonds, when anybody thinks about Edmonds, what we think about for the most part is the way that our downtown area thrives, the way that we are brought into community in those areas. And I think we have to ask ourselves why. What is it about those areas that make them so appealing? I think that so much of it has to do with the way that it has been successfully urban planned. I think that the fact that there is business community, the fact that it's a walkable neighborhood, and funnily enough, that's the area of Edmonds that has the highest diversity in housing type. That's the area that has single-family homes. That's the area that has duplexes. That's the area that has those small and more affordable condo units. Now, what I hear when I'm knocking on these doors constantly is everything is going up in terms of prices. I'm worried about the rising cost of things, especially if the levy passes. So I need to be able to find somewhere in our community where I can downsize. Often this is seniors speaking from split-level homes that become increasingly dangerous as you age. But there just aren't those options in Edmonds right now. There just aren't enough units of different housing types that people can use, that people can live in, that people can grow old in. And I think that making sure that we have solutions that allow for things like that to make neighborhoods accessible in that type of way for people as they want to not leave their community behind in Edmonds is going to be really, really important.
I agree that we have a housing demand that we need to take steps to address. And I love the bowl, and I agree with you. I will say, however, that I myself would be hard pressed to find anything, regardless of housing type, in the bowl that is, what I would consider to be affordable. Because as we all know, the primary rule of real estate is location, location, location. And waterfront and bowl is always going to be expensive, which is why if we're truly looking at affordability and density, we need to be looking away from the waterfront, focusing on our transportation areas where we have the utilities and the transportation corridors where we can put in that density, where we can support it. Our poor water sewage treatment plant can support it. Our pipes can support it. We have the ability to buy land that is a bit more affordable, which therefore whatever housing type you put on it will therefore become more affordable. But we do need to take into account the character of the neighborhoods. And as we're building these things out, we need to find win-win scenarios where as things are going in, as development's going in, the neighborhood gets a park or a common area, or we get more sidewalks or things put into those areas so that it becomes a nice seamless part of that neighborhood and it isn't really a sharp adjustment. And I do think that revitalization along 99 and then building that density as it steps back from there is going to bring in a lot of areas like this type of a community center potentially down there where people in that neighborhood can gather and have these types of events as well.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, and you're absolutely right. There's nothing about the area of the bowl or anywhere in Edmonds that is affordable right now, and it's a supply issue. The problem is that I came into this community, and as I mentioned, I have the privilege of serving as an executive director. Yes, at a nonprofit. You don't go into that to make a ton of money, but pretty high up role in that. I had to find a roommate, another young man, to split a 500 square foot apartment in Edmonds because the costs are that high. That is unsustainable for future generations, for current generations. That is what hurts. That is what pinches every single one of us. So I think, and by the way, I live in between Five Corners and the 99. I live in that area that's supposedly cheaper right now, right? That's how dire this is. So making sure that we have solutions that are allowing for that, yes, in those areas especially that are going to be more affordable, to allow everybody the access to the services that we have as a city, the parks that we have, the beautiful neighborhoods, everything that makes this place what we love can't become increasingly out of reach like that to everybody.
You have anything more you want to add, Sonia?
No, just again, I completely agree. One of the things in the comp plan that I was really interested in was the area that we're calling the medical district in the comp plan, where we've got the university, and I've seen other cities who have done this, where you kind of marry young families and student housing and kind of senior living in like a Rambler style community where they're like cottage homes, and they're the perfect starter homes for families. They're also nice homes that don't have lots of, yard work and things that you have to keep up. And they look after each other. They form this community where like the retired individuals who are living in there have the benefit of having young children around. And the younger adults have the benefit of having neighbors that they can come to with their problems and their solutions. And that just feels very Edmonds to me, because that's just who we are. We all talk to each other. So as we are planning, don't think about just putting in a complex here, but think about building out a neighborhood and a community and thinking about all the different people that could be a part of that.
May I?
Very quickly.
Okay, thank you. Of course, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'll say I really do agree with that. I'm really glad to hear that. I think that the important piece of this is we have to have people in those communities represented to make those decisions, because we can't just make those new plans and those new areas of different zoning and then forget about it. My street is like that. I live in that medical district that you're talking about. My street doesn't have sidewalks. My street doesn't have street lights. My street has people drag racing down, and I've woken up in the middle of the night from that. I see new graffiti popping up on my street as well. These are problems that don't know borders of cities. These are problems that encroach and encroach and encroach. And when they are happening on the outskirts of our community, like in my neighborhood, it can happen other places too. So we need to make sure that we have representation of people in those communities on the council to make sure that those voices are listened to too.
Anything more from you, Ms. Sonia?
No, I think you said we need to move on.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to question 3. During every local election, the question is raised about partisan politics and whether candidates should accept endorsements from political parties. Starting with Mr. Newman, could each of you just state whether you have received a party endorsement, and if so, from which party, and then we'll talk more about the pros and cons of that in the larger discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a cornerstone of my campaign and how I want to govern as a city councillor is to tell you exactly where I stand on all of these issues. I know that I don't have the same, years of community experience that my opponent does. That's no secret. I'm not going to run away from that. What I think is important is that you know where I stand on these issues. I am endorsed by Snohomish County Democrats, and I'm proud of that. I don't hide that at all. It's a nonpartisan position, which means that the people in those roles are not going to caucus. They're not going to, make their votes all the same. But that's my values.
Thank you.
As you know, this is a nonpartisan position, and I am running nonpartisan. I felt that by taking money from any party or declaring any party, I would be de facto eliminating a portion of Edmonds out of my constituency, and I'm here to represent all of Edmonds. I am Team Edmonds all the way. Whatever is going on at the national level, I don't care. I'm here for our town. I'm here for you, and so I'm here for all of Edmonds.
I don't even have, you're going, go.
No, yeah, absolutely. And this is something that, people in good faith can disagree on. I really believe that for me, this is a way to tell you all where my values lie. I know that everybody in this room has some kind of direction in which they lean. I know that the issues that are important at the national level affect us here. They do. I think that so much of the funding crises that we're seeing at the city level have to do with a lot that's happening in national politics, with grants being slashed, with opportunities for funding being cut in different ways. I want you all to know that I am endorsed not just by the Democrats, but by groups that really go into what that means to me. It means that I'm an environmentalist. It means that I am supported by Washington Conservation Action, by the Sierra Club. It means that I support women's rights. I'm endorsed by Planned Parenthood Action. I'm endorsed by law enforcement groups, by the Snohomish County Sheriff, by a former prosecutor for the Snohomish County as well. These are the things of what it means to me, and I don't want to just rely on the party. Nobody should vote just on that, but it tells you a little bit more about who I am and what I stand for.
I have what would be considered traditional bipartisan support across all people of Edmonds across every level of the state. I have former state senators, I have current Snohomish County Council members on both sides of the aisle, I have current sitting city council members, I have business members, I have members of the Edmonds Marsh Estuary who support me, the Boys and Girls Club, anybody, many small business owners, families, police, fire. I am here to represent Edmonds. My values are front and center. They are very much the people of Edmonds, and that is who I'm here to represent. I'm not interested in politics. I'm interested in principles and people, and so that is who I'm here for, and that is what I will represent for you.
And to me, it's a transparency thing, honestly. I really just want you to know exactly who. I'm always going to tell you exactly who supports me. Whether you want to know the people on the council that support me, those are Susan Payne and Chris Eck especially. If you want to know the state senators that support me, it's Mark Elias and Senator Solomon. The list goes on, and I want to tell you exactly who. I get personally a little bit afraid when I just hear it's people of these different groups. Like I want to be able to know who it is so that I can really.
I have over 200 people's names on my website for the endorsement, and they're all listed out there, and more keep joining every day. So they're all on there. I'm not hiding anything. You can ask me anything you'd like. I'm an open book. I'm very transparent, and I am openly telling you that I am nonpartisan, and it's not a gimmick. It's just who I am. I actually show up as a swing voter. I vote principles and issues and people.
I think that's a good time to stop and do Q&A.
Hi, my name's Charlie. I'm a senior, my wife and I are seniors, we're on fixed incomes. And, you know, you talk about affordability, you talk about character, charm, all that. But you know what? The RFP is coming in, and I got a $800, $900 a month a year payment. And then after that, we're gonna get the Prop 1. And so I don't see how, I'm gonna have to go live in that $500 apartment with you. I want to know, even though Chris is not here, I want to know what you guys want to do about us that can't afford it. Now you say, oh, we should downsize and go move into a downsize. Really? I need to downsize now? I don't want to downsize.
Sure. No, I really appreciate that question. No, I'm certainly not suggesting that anybody should be forced to downsizing. That's the whole problem that we want to avoid. When we have more, excuse me, when we have more options, that is what creates a difference in supply. That creates a difference in the amount of money demanded for those properties. That is, I think, the long-term solution to make sure that people aren't priced out of those things. It's also just a matter of what's our numerator and what's our denominator when we start coming to the tax burden that people are facing. When we have a shrinking population, and the population of Edmonds did shrink a little bit last year, which concerns me on another level. The number of people that we are relying on to pay this tax burden goes down, so the amount that every individual has to pay goes up. And that is that systemic problem that I think is really, really an issue here.
No, I agree. This is why I am questioning heartily the $14.5 million levy lid lift number. I feel like it is a little bit, frankly, tone deaf for the city council to have not done zero-based budgeting to be able to justify every single cent that is being asked of our people at a time when they already know that they're going to be saddled with the RFA annexation. I know that we need a short gap. We need what is essentially a bridge loan, likely, but this levy is not structured that way. It is a permanent levy, meaning that it goes up to that 14.5. It increases with inflationary rates, which is 3 to 6% every year for 6 years. Then it stops. It may be somewhere as high as 19 million, and then it goes back to going up 1%. That is way too much to ask without being able to justify the need for that amount of money from the people of Edmonds. So I'm not saying we don't need it. I wish we'd done a different levy. I wish we'd done a different structure of a levy. We had many, many choices in council, and they chose to go down this path. So either way, we can fix it, but know that I'm with you, and I'm gonna fight to reduce our taxes.
Thank you.
All right, 500.
Harvey Williams, so this is really directed at Ms. Barnett. So I have read that since you're a small business owner, you are against any new B&O tax, and yet you are really, you did state, or at least I read that you stated, that our taxpayer money should go to promoting businesses. Now, I'm not against promoting businesses, but how, if you're going to be on the council, how do we know you're not going to have a conflict of interest and vote for taxes not to happen to you and vote for taxpayer money to go to support your business? Thank you.
I'm not entirely certain I understood the second part of your question. Taxpayer money doesn't go to support the businesses. I was talking about that one earlier when I was mentioning that. I just meant all of you patronizing our businesses, going to our local shops and restaurants and helping us that way. A B&O tax is a very regressive tax. If you're not familiar with B&O tax is a gross revenue tax. So say you have a restaurant or a retail store that does $2 million worth of sales. That's like total sales per year. You're taxed at the same rate as, say, an engineering firm, a guy with one laptop who was also doing $2 million in sales that year. But that business has to pay, the restaurant has to pay for their staff, they have to pay for their physical brick and mortar, they have to pay for their inventory of food, they have to pay all of the other state, local liquor taxes, all of the things that go into running that retail margins, whether it is a store or a restaurant, are very, very thin. And a B&O tax does not care. It does not care if you're making $2 a year or $2 million a year. You pay the same amount of tax because it's off of that gross total sales. It unnecessarily penalizes small businesses, particularly the mom and pop type businesses we have in our poll and in our core that we are trying to support. And that is why I do not think that that is the way in which we go about achieving tax through retail. We need to encourage retail sales tax. So it's more people purchasing, coming in from out of area, buying things from our stores. That's how we increase, and then that's how the businesses stay afloat.
Thank you very much. All right, next question.
My name is Eric, local Edmonds resident for, most of my childhood and adulthood. Question for both of you. So, it is no secret that when you implement taxes, they usually don't go away down the road, and costs only continue to go up. For both of you, what additional areas of our city budget would you be looking at to cut? Because our last mayor got us into this mess, and we need to get out of it, and it's not just about raising money, it's about cutting spending like business owners do. What are you going to do to cut the budget more?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you for that question. So I think that, as I mentioned earlier, the amount that the budget was cut this last year to try to correct for the crisis that we're in was really substantial. Like, it created that about 50% cut to police force workforce, for example. It was a lot. The things that we need to be doing to make sure that we are actually stabilizing that and relying on the people of the community to come together to do so, I think we need to prove that there is a lot of benefit that the amazing volunteers in this community can bring, and they can. I am really privileged to be in charge of an organization with, in just our local area, over 500 volunteers who do the work of the organization. That is a real testament to the power that people can bring in their community to make sure that we are keeping costs low. I'm really proud that over 90 cents of every dollar that my organization gets goes directly to client care. That is what is going to be a piece that gets us through it in the long term, especially.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Eric, just to let you know, we can't manage what we don't measure. And right now, City Council has no idea what the output is that is coming out of all of our different services within our municipal departments. And so they've been cutting essentially blind. And so that's probably why we're seeing a lot of the pain points that we are. It's like we're getting too far into the quick. So in certain areas, and maybe there's other areas we haven't even looked at yet. So I would advocate for a zero-based budgeting approach where we go through each department and we look at everything, like how many planners, how many permits is that per year? How long does it take to get a permit? How long should it take to get a permit? We had the new head of our planning department at a city council meeting 2 weeks ago, was asked if he was given 2 additional headcount because of the budget constraints and the personnel cuts, what would that do for him? And he said, I don't know, but I think it would help. He should know. If I was given 2 new employees, you bet I could tell you what that would do for my business. And I think that every single director and department would love to know that. And so I think that is the very first step we would do.
Thank you very much. It is time for closing statements. And Mr. Newman, you start first.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this tonight. Thank you, everybody, for
30
being here.
seconds, by the way.
Oh, great. Okay. Starting now. Awesome. Thank you. I'm just so glad that I get to call this my home. I come from a working class community from England, and living here and the opportunities that this city provides is my American dream. And I'm so grateful for that every day. I think that so much of what we need to look at is going to be about how we are going to engage not just the people right now with transparency, but the residents of future generations too. I want to represent everybody in this city, tell you exactly where I stand on these issues, and make that really, really incredibly clear to all of you, whether we agree or disagree.
Thank you. Ms. Barnett?
I too would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and for watching the Mariners in the playoffs. I appreciate you all being here, and Teresa for having us. I love this city. It's where I'm raising my family. I'm running a business here, and I want to see Edmonds thrive. I'll bring practical experience, transparency, and a collaborative spirit to City Hall because Edmonds deserves leadership that listens, learns, and leads with heart. I'd be honored to earn your trust and your vote this coming November. So please vote for Erica at position 3.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for our panelists.
Good evening. My name is Jay Grant. I've been honored to represent the Port of Edmonds for the last 4 years, and obviously I'm running again. The port's different. My background personally is legislative and regulatory, and then I represented the U.S. Port Authorities after 9/11. And in my day job, I represent international ports, operations, finances, and public safety. Ports are really different. Out of our $15.2 million revenue, only about $600,000, excuse me, is from taxes. The port district only goes to 92nd, which was the original Edmonds district, and my particular district has part of Edmonds and all of Woodway. So we've been financially prudent, not only what I think our current commissioners, but those before us. We have about $30 million in our capital investment fund for things that need to be done. That's it?
You're done. Thank you. All right.
Thank you for your
at-large position.
At-large position. Teresa, thank you. Thank you, my Edmonds News for hosting us. Thank you for attending. My name is Ross Dimmick, and I was appointed to the Edmonds Port Commission in April to serve the remainder of the term. I'm seeking your vote to retain that position for a full term. I'm an Edmonds native and a 37-year resident. I retired last year from a 38-year career in environmental protection, mostly writing and managing environmental impact statements and environmental assessments for projects across the country, including for ports. While I have particular expertise in the environment, my business and project management background direct my focus on the port's short and long-term financial stability, especially with the upcoming port walk and seawall replacement project. My 7 years as a commercial fisherman in the Puget Sound area has taught me the value of port services and ensuring that those services are always available to voters that need them. The port has an important role to play in the future of Edmonds. I believe my professional experience, knowledge, and passion for the community will help serve that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is from Chelsea. Dear neighbors, thank you for being here tonight. I'm unable to join you due to a long-standing family reunion in Utah. My name is Chelsea Rudd, and while I'm running for Edmonds Port Commissioner, this race is about the future we want. I'm running to incentivize clean voting, prioritize marsh restoration, and to reimagine Harbor Square as a hub for ecotourism, scientific research, and a community climate education center, alongside walkable cafes and retail that centers on sustainable and ethical practices. By putting the port to work expanding business opportunities, we can help Edmonds emerge from its financial crisis. I'm also running to bring the voices of young families like mine to the table in a city where 0 elected officials are under age 40. As Chief Financial Officer of a multi-state, multi-million-dollar organization, and a former CPA who worked for the federal government, I bring years of experience that is relevant to the work of a port commissioner. I'm proud to be the only candidate endorsed by the Sierra Club, Washington Conservation Action, travel writer and community activist Rick Steves, former port director, executive director Angela Harris, and many elected officials and community leaders. To learn more, please visit electchelseared.com. I look forward to serving you on the port. Thank you for your vote.
All right, so we're going to go with the same format. We're going to give you 1 minute to make an opening statement.
Okay, great. Well, Jane, first off, I want to say thank you for following the port and coming to our meetings. It's great to have somebody in the audience. And thank you, Teresa, for hosting this in Edmonds News, and everybody else who's stuck around. I really appreciate it. I'm Janelle Cass, and I'm the current Edmonds Port Commissioner for District 1. I'm also a wife, a mother, a business owner, Air Force veteran, and I have a degree in civil and environmental engineering. I've spent 23 years using my education experience mitigating environmental impacts of infrastructure projects with both the Air Force and the Federal Aviation Administration. Serving at the port has been a wonderful opportunity to focus on the three things that matter to me most: public access to the water, environmental stewardship, and economic development. As a lifelong sailor, maritime enthusiast, and environmental professional, I strongly believe that the Port of Edmonds is the heart of our city. We must restore, protect, and invest in our port for all the future generations.
All right, thank you. So the port is in very good financial shape right now, but you are dependent on federal funding for some of your major projects. What happens if that federal funding doesn't materialize?
Great question. Well, we have been seeking federal funding. We don't have to have it to accomplish the big projects that we have going on. So people might not realize, or they might be aware, that we have the North Port Walk and seawall replacement that's coming up. And we've also got the maintenance of the mid-marina breakwater. But we have strategies to be able to afford to pay for that. As you've heard from the other commissioners, we do have $30 million right now in our savings. And we are in a really good financial position to do bonds to help cover the cost of that. Now, would it be great if we had some grants from the federal government? That would be wonderful, but that seems a bit up in the air at this point in time.
All right, question number 2. Some people say the Harbor Square Business Complex could be redesigned to make it more inviting for the community as a whole. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we are actually going to be embarking on the master plan for Harbor Square. Well, we have about 60 businesses on port property, many of them in Harbor Square. Those buildings are coming to end of life, and we really have to start thinking about what is a replacement strategy. But that's going to involve everybody's voice and getting really robust public input on what they want to see. I know in 2013 there was the master plan, and there was a lot of controversy around that, so I'm really hoping that we're going to take some lessons learned from what people did or did not like about those original plans, or what the city did or did not like about those plans going forward. I think we've got really great opportunities. We also have a lot of challenges with that piece of property. It's a great location, but we have an opportunity to make it more connected to the rest of Edmonds along Dayton. And then, of course, we do have to start thinking about resiliency, because we do have some flooding sometimes that happens in that area.
So you are one of 5 commissioners.
Yeah.
How would you make your vision, or how would you work with the other 4 commissioners to get to a vision that you could all vote on?
I mean, we all work really well together. I mean, we've been working really hard. I like to use maps and images. I think that usually helps, Images tell 1,000 words, and if you can do things 3-dimensionally on Google Earth, I think that's even more important to do. So you can bring ideas to the table in that way. We usually workshop 2 out of the 4, or half the time of our meetings, and so that allows us to work really well together and exchange ideas.
Every port commissioner brings expertise to the position. What is your unique expertise, and how does it manifest itself during your commissioner activities?
Thanks for that question. Well, my background is environmental engineering, actually civil environmental engineering. And I've been working at ports across the United States, predominantly in the West Coast and the Pacific Islands. And in helping to mitigate some very significant, like what could be impacts as significant infrastructure projects, I had to reach out to other environmental, like other agencies, tribal nations, and really listen and really help to problem solve by bringing that input to the table. And I'd like to bring that here to the Port of Edmonds.
All right. You were recently, you are now part of a two-person ad hoc committee to go and learn more about the marsh as the port develops a port position on the marsh. What have you learned? What have you learned that has surprised you? What were you not expecting? And where is your thinking right now?
Right. I'm very honored to be on that subcommittee because I get to work with Ross and we share a lot of just ways of wanting to seek information. And that's kind of the mission we're on right now, is just data gathering. What I did enjoy talking to the estuary advocates was finding that they had put together so much information on financial risks and environmental benefits of restoring the estuary. One of the things that I have learned is that there are other people who want to do private-public partnerships. And so there could be some really good opportunities for some other funding to do restoration. And I don't know, let's see, we just found out that, I mean, one of the things that I found out is that the Unical property has some pretty outdated sampling results. And so we'd really like to know what is the current condition of the contamination on Unical. I do think that the port could play a pretty significant role. I'm really excited to see the estuary restored to all its glory and connected to the Salish Sea. But I think it's a very technical endeavor. And we want to have people with environmental expertise that have faced projects like that before.
All right, Teresa, how are we for time?
I think we're line of questions. Should have been trying. Other than writing an EIS or as an engineer, what have you personally done to save the environment in Edmonds? Very different from what an environmental engineer does.
Well, I have been chair of the tree board, and I physically planted trees. I've also been with Joe Scordino and his group to help volunteer at the marsh, and I found out that I was not only the only commissioner to have done so, but the only board commissioner candidate to go participate in the marsh restoration. And I'm going to push back a little bit. Yes, writing EISs is one thing, but I've actually physically been out mitigating issues for endangered species. I've made sure that I'm contacting the right agencies. I've been the ones personally writing letters to tribal nations to get their input, as well as been the one to use the mapping apps and the technical tools that I had to find out exactly where we should go for public input when it came to moving aircraft over different populations. And so I'm not somebody who just looks at big pieces of paper, but I do roll up my sleeves and I get to work and I use my technical expertise. I will bury myself in Excel spreadsheets and Google Earth maps to make sure that I've got all the data I need to then go put feed boots on the ground. I've even done, as an Air Force officer, NEVDA's sampling run. I am literally in the water, grabbing the water samples.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have a question?
What's your thoughts on the proposed boutique hotel, eco boutique hotel?
That's going to be my next question.
And whether the site is actually appropriate for such a use?
Great question. I think it's going to be really great for the city of Edmonds to have this boutique hotel and this spa hotel. I was really impressed with what was presented in terms of they're going to be seeking LEED Gold on the building and that they promised to build it within the same footprint as the existing building. We were given overwhelming positive encouragement to sign the ground lease with 1010 Development. I think it's going to be wonderful for our economy to be bringing in more people. That also means travel and lodging taxes that are going to be collected. We were given some really good information on just how much, if somebody's staying overnight, how much more they will spend in that locality. And as we've been talking here tonight about how much revenue the city of Edmonds really needs, I think it's going to be a really good benefit. And the timing is lovely, right? We all love Arnie's, but they were getting ready to leave. So nobody's going to push them out or the other businesses. It's going to be a nice gradual shift.
Much. Anybody else have a question? All right. Thank you very much, Janelle, for being here tonight. Thank you, Jamie, for doing such a nice job of moderating. You're going to have a closing statement.
Great. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. And I promise next time you hear my voice, you won't have to be putting off watching the Mariners game to hear it. In closing, it's an honor to serve at the Port. We have an amazing staff and leadership, and my fellow Port commissioners and I are hard at work to serve the community in the most transparent, fiscally responsible, and beneficial ways to our environment, our businesses, and all who love to visit the waterfront. We have a seawall and North Port Walk replacement, mid-marina breakwater repair, and Harbor Square master planning coming up. I ask for your vote on November 4th so that we can remain on a successful course, pun intended, to completing these significant projects in an efficient, safe, and technically sound manner. And I promise, with me as your Port Commissioner, your voice will always be championed. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.